Hey guys, Soberoni of G&A Reviews here to bring you another Servant Spotlight after a short break due to Nerofest, but we are back in action, and this time it's going to be on the highly requested Herc. It's about time we got to Herc, but that's not the only Berserker we're covering today. Today is Berserker Day, so if you haven't seen it already, please check out my Vlad Spotlight video as well after this one. And if you're new to the series, what we do is we take a look at each Servant's skills, their stats, their deck and Noble Phantasm, and I give an analysis on how good they are on a scale between D and S, as well as some tips on team composition and craft essences that work well with them. And I'll leave the link to the full Servant Spotlight playlist in the description below so that you can check out if I covered a servant that you might be interested in. And so without further ado, let's just get right into Herc. Herc is a 4-star Berserker with a raw max HP stat of 10,327, which, fun fact, he shares with both Lancelot and an unreleased Berserker. They have the same exact max HP stat, which overall is very low among Berserkers, but to make up for it, he does have a max attack stat of 10,655, which is the highest raw attack stat among the 4-star Berserkers, even in the Japanese version. When it comes to skills, he has Valor A+, which increases attack between 10.5 to 31%, and increases debuff resistance between 21 to 42%. He also has Mind's Eye False, rank B, which applies 1 turn evade and gives him increased critical hit damage between 18 to 36% depending on his level. And finally, he has Battle Continuation A, which applies Guts, aka Revive, to him 1 time for 5 turns, bringing him back to life between 1,000 and 2,500 HP, depending on skill level. For passives, he has Madness Enhancement B, which increases Buster Card effectiveness by 8%, and Divinity A, which increases overall damage by 200. So now let's take a look at his deck and his Noble Phantasm. Herc has a standard Berserker deck, that being Quick Arts Buster, 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 as well as a Buster Noble Phantasm. Herc's Noble Phantasm is 9 lives, in which he does huge amounts of damage to one target and decreases their defense between 10 to 30%. The defense decrease scales with overcharge, while the damage portion scales with level. So now that we know his skills and his stats, how good of a servant is he? Well, normally guys, when I do a spotlight for a 4-star, I preface it by saying that I do not compare 4-star servants to 5-star servants, mainly because the power gap in the stats is so huge. Even a 4-star servant who I would rank as an A+, would probably only be as good as like a C rank 5-star. However, this is one of the very few exceptions. Herc is not only stronger than every other 4-star in the game now and at least for the next 2 years if the Japanese version is anything to go by, he's also possibly the strongest Berserker in the game, period. Most 5-star Berserkers can't even hold a candle to Herc, and the few that do, it's pretty debatable if they're actually as impactful as Herc can be in the long term. So why is that? What makes Herc so incredible even though all the 5-star Berserkers have more HP and attack than him by far? Well, simply put, it's his skills. Every one of Herc's skills is strong and it fits his style of play perfectly. The job of a Berserker most of the time is to just come in, do as much damage as possible for a few turns, and then just blow up. They're pretty much glass cannons. Herc isn't a glass cannon, he's a cannon. Thanks to 2 of his skills in particular, Mind's Eye and Battle Continuation, his survivability is almost as high as servants like Ku, which, given Herc's lore, makes plenty of sense. At max skill rank, he can dodge every 6 turns, and he has a revive up every 7 turns. So with just a little bit of support to keep him standing while his skills are on cooldown, he can be a very tough opponent to take down. On top of all that, despite having 2 skills dedicated to keeping him alive, his damage doesn't suffer at all, because Valor is an incredibly strong buff that increases all his damage by up to 31% for 3 turns. That's a huge buff that gives him pretty much 5-star level attack for 3 turns, which is especially strong in a Berserker considering a lot of them only have 1-turn buffs, like 1-turn Buster buffs. And even his passives are fantastic because both of them further increases damage, making him even more optimal as a damage dealer. And moving on to his deck in Noble Phantasm, although it is the typical Berserker deck, it's still very strong. Having so many busters means he can easily buster Brave Chain for incredible damage. Remember, a buster Brave Chain buffs the damage for each buster attack, And if all 3 of those cards are Herc's, he gets a buff to all his buster damage on top of the buffs from his passive and Valor. So he's capable of putting out some of the highest damage numbers in the entire game very consistently. And the single target Noble Phantasm is really just the cherry on top that really enables him to just nuke anyone, regardless of their servant class. There aren't really many downsides to him. If I really wanted to be nitpicky, the debuff resistance on Valor and the crit damage buff on Mind's Eye aren't that great, especially since Berserkers aren't really able to attract crit stars as well, but those are extremely minor. Valor is definitely worth leveling first over the other 2 skills just because of the increased damage, and then you can choose between leveling Mind's Eye or Battle Continuation next, depending on which you personally value more, since all you're really doing is just lowering the cooldown reduction. Although Battle Continuation does revive you with more HP as you level it, but that HP gain is kind of negligible considering you are a Berserker, so you take increased damage anyway. So all in all, Herc is fantastic, but how can we make him even better? Herc's best role is as a sweeper. You keep him in the back of your party in reserve so that he can come out and just sweep and clean up everyone later on without exposing himself to too much damage. And to that effect, even though he can take care of himself with his skills, like all Berserkers, he kind of really appreciates the company of a babysitter that's there to heal him and buff him every now and again. And Waver is perfect for this role since she can charge his Noble Phantasm and buff him. Ruler also works well since she can further protect him from any sticky situations with her Noble Phantasm. And Artoria and Gil even work well because they can increase his damage a ton with their party buffs. But if you aren't swimming in golds, I do highly recommend you have Hans Christian Andersen with him, since he's essentially just a mini Waver, and he can also provide Herc with healing and attack buffs, while Caesar can kind of fill the role of Artoria or Gil. And the best craft essence on Herc is without a doubt his Bond craft essence, Castle of Snow. This is the best Bond craft essence in the entire game. This craft essence only works on Herc, and it actually gives him 3 additional lives on top of his skills, making him almost immortal. It's a seriously broken craft essence on him, but it can take forever to get that since you have to max his Bond level to 10, and that's very difficult to do. So until you get to that point, you should be using either Kaleidoscope or Limited Zero. The former makes it easier to get Herc's Noble Phantasm charged faster, so he can boss kill even quicker, while the latter is better if you plan to use him in more prolonged fights because it really increases his damage across the entire fight. And if you don't have those, you can use their 4-star or 3-star equivalents. And so let's just take a look at my overall opinion of Herc. Herc is a crazy strong Berserker without the one thing that makes a Berserker balanced. He does not have that low survivability, meaning Herc is a cannon with no downsides who can blast through anyone regardless of their class or power, even rulers, which is very important to note. I'm serious when I say he's better than any of the 5-star Berserkers out there in my opinion, because he's just so unkillable with that Bondcraft essence that it's really not even fair at a certain point. And if it weren't for Waver, he would be the most broken servant in the game right now. But for now, he'll just have to settle for being the second most broken in the game, which is kind of like being the second richest person on the planet in that at a certain point, rank stops mattering. Rich is rich, and game breaking is game breaking as far as I'm concerned, so he gets an S rank from me, and if you have him, I would strongly recommend making him your main Berserker now and in the future. He won't ever let you down, and he only gets stronger as the game goes on. Alright guys, that's my servant spotlight for Herc, but let me know what you think in the comments, whether you agree with me, you disagree with me, or if you just have fun stories to share about Herc. Whatever the case may be, let me know because I love discussing the game with you guys. Also, please check out my Vlad spotlight as well. Even if you have Herc already, there are a couple of things about Vlad that are worth checking out that you might actually consider using him over Herc. But I'll go into detail on that in the Vlad video so you know what I'm talking about. And next week I will be doing a spotlight on Altera since she has been requested so much, along with one other servant. I'm not quite sure who yet, so just in the comments below let me know who you want to see given the spotlight alongside Altera next week. And if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, and if you really enjoyed it, please consider subscribing so you can be alerted when these videos go up, and maybe even join me in some of the upcoming live streams I plan on doing, as well as the events. And that's all I have to say, so I'll see you guys in the comments. Peace.